Again, thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Travis Marks. I'm the director of Generations University here at the Pension Boards. We are joined today by Dan Velez with EMY, and he's going to go over the topic of estate planning for everyone and help you understand that topic and some of the things that are important for everyone as they think through their situation. Dan?
Here?
Sure, I got my hearing.
Oh, and just a request, please mute yourself if you would, and just so to take care of some of the background noise. And then we could open it up for questions at the end. Also, if you have any questions that you want to type in the chat, you'll see the chat button at the bottom on the side of your screen, and just type your chat there and we'll see it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis. Again, my name is Danny. I am a certified financial planner and have been with EY for over 10 years. Today, we'll be going over one of my favorite topics, estate planning. Now, we know that it's not the most cheerful topic to speak about, but we also know that not everyone made it home last night. When I talk about estate planning, I often say that if I were hit by a bus yesterday, my wife isn't going to care about my asset allocation. It's not going to matter to her or to my kids what my thoughts were about making pre-tax versus Roth contributions into my 401k if I didn't have the proper estate documents in place. So it's important to have a working knowledge of how all this works. And at the end of the day, it's about control. You controlling certain decisions that may need to be made. With that in mind, today's workshop is part of a larger program of financial guidance being offered to you, starting with the EY Navigate Planner Line, or the EY NPL. The EY NPL provides you with the opportunity to speak with a financial planner. There is no cost to you and no sales. You can call as often as you wish. It's really up to you how you want to use our services. It could be that you just have a one-off question that any of us can answer for you, such as how much can I put into an IRA this year? Or it could be that you continue to work with the same planner for months and years into the future because you really are doing more in-depth planning. Some examples of topics and questions we can address are: when should I start taking Social Security? Education planning for kids or grandkids? Should I pay off my mortgage? Am I withholding properly for federal taxes? Do I still need life insurance? Should I buy long-term care insurance? What are the best ways to pay down debt and build up emergency funds, and more? Next is EY Navigate Digital. If you haven't done so already, you'll need to register. As a side note, when you type it in, leave off the www. So you'll just want to type in pbucc.eynavigate.com. EY Navigate Digital provides access to articles, calculators, tools, and other resources. You have the ability to upload statements, spreadsheets, and download reports, for example. There's also a secure mailbox to correspond with your planner. Think of it almost like email. The app is available for download on Google Play or the Apple Store. And finally, there's EY Navigate Group Learning. You'd be able to register for one of the group learnings on EY Navigate Digital. There's a new topic each month, 4 sessions per month. Space is limited, so sign up early. And replays are also available on the website the following month. Finally, face-to-face workshops may also be available at your location throughout the year, So be on the lookout for possible communications. To help you improve upon your finances, we'll be suggesting some action steps to take after today's workshop. The value in this or any other financial seminar really comes from how you actually use the information provided and the knowledge gained. We hope to make this goal of taking action easy for you by using a personal action plan. Now, it doesn't have to look like what we see here on the screen. It could just be a blank piece of paper, for example. But the elements of a personal action plan should include a specific series of steps and a time frame in which to achieve each of them. Throughout this session, we'll be highlighting specific action steps for you to consider for your own personal action plan. I'd suggest you write down action plan at the top of the page, then write down whatever occurs to you during the presentation. You can certainly also send something in the chat, and at the end, we'll certainly go through it and see if there's any questions that we can answer. Then once you have that, put it somewhere you can see it and take action on it within a week. So let's jump into today's topic, estate planning. Before we can continue, we have to understand what we mean when we say the word estate. An estate is the property a person leaves behind when they die, minus any debts that he or she owes. It includes anything of value that an individual owns, such as real estate, that baseball card collection you have in the attic, collectibles, antiques, jewelry. Beyond these tangible or touchable assets, the estate could include financial assets such as cash, investments, retirement accounts, business interests, and generally life insurance. Once you've calculated the size of your estate and identified what its components are, you're in a better position to define what you want to accomplish through estate planning. Generally, estate planning begins with a will, which is a legal document that enables you to declare how you want your affairs to be handled after you pass. This can relieve your survivors of a painful burden during what would likely be a difficult time for them. A will names the people who will receive the specified property after your death. It can also be used to name guardians for your minor children if there's no surviving parent. Without this, the state will decide who will raise your children, and there's no guarantee that that would be someone you would have chosen. Now, there are two kinds of guardians with two distinct sets of responsibilities. There are day-to-day guardians and financial guardians. Your day-to-day guardian should be equipped to rear children and provide a nurturing home. They should be financially capable of supporting your children and willing to accept the responsibility. The financial guardian should be financially astute, ethical, and trustworthy. You may wish to assign both responsibilities to one individual or nominate two separate individuals or entities. So I have two brothers, both of which I love and are good fathers. However, I might not trust them with a nickel of my money. If that were the case, I may want to have one of them as the day-to-day guardian, but maybe not the financial guardian. The issue with having the responsibility split is, what if the two individuals, for example, don't agree? It may be more complicated to have two individuals carry out specific duties compared to just one performing both. The will is also the place where you formally designate an executor or an executrix who would be charged with the responsibility for carrying out the wishes stated in your will. These responsibilities include carrying out the wishes, getting copies of the death certificate, preparing a listing of the estate assets and determining their value, filing papers in court and with tax authorities, notifying insurance companies and banks, paying debts and taxes, and distributing assets as stated in your will. Finally, while a will determines who will inherit any assets that you own individually, it's only one possible device through which your property can be transferred at death. For example, if you own assets as joint tenants with rights of survivorship with another person and you die first, your surviving co-owner will take over full ownership of such asset, regardless of what the provisions of your will might say. And any beneficiary designations you make for your retirement accounts, life insurance policies, or trusts you establish will override the provisions of the will. So it's important for you to keep your beneficiary designations up to date as your life situation changes through such events such as marriage, divorce, or death of a current beneficiary. Said another way, if your will says everything's going to my spouse and your beneficiary designation still has your high school sweetheart, there's going to be a problem. Now, you've probably heard the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. Well, within the context of estate planning, it's more appropriate to say where there's a will, there's probate. But what exactly is probate? Well, probate is the legal process in which a will is reviewed to determine whether it's valid and authentic. It also refers to the general administering of a deceased person's will. The court approves your executor and supervises their work in connection with collecting the assets of the deceased, paying any debts remaining against the estate, and distributing the assets of the estate to beneficiaries named in the will. If no will exists, the court will appoint a personal representative who's then responsible for distributing the assets of the estate according to provisions of state law. Like most things, there are pros and cons. Some pros of probate are that the court determines the validity of the will. It allows the will to be challenged. There's court supervision of distribution of the assets. It allows for valuation of assets and payments of creditor claims. And the executor must report to the court and heirs. Some cons of probate are one, cost, typically depending on the, generally you see somewhere between 2 to 10% of what's called the probatable estate. 2 would be time, depending on how complex the situation, can typically take somewhere between 6 to 12 months for it to be completed. And finally, loss of privacy. Some ways to avoid probate are to own assets jointly, name beneficiaries, create a living trust, and gift assets while you're still alive. So again, some ways to avoid probate are to own assets jointly, name beneficiaries, create a living trust, and gift assets while you're still alive. So what should you do with your will once it's created? You'll want to make sure you keep it in a safe place. The executor of your will should have a copy of it as well. And you'll want to be careful when making hard copies of the will. Back when my first daughter was born and I updated my estate documents, I remember the attorney telling me to make sure that I don't unstaple the will, because by unstapling it, it may cause some questions and concerns when going through the probate process. So if you are going to make copies, you want to handle it very carefully. You may want to consider what's called a cross box arrangement, which basically says if I'm married, for example, I'd keep my will in my spouse's deposit box and they would keep theirs in mine. You need to update your will over time, every 3 to 5 years or sooner in the event of a major life event, such as a birth or death, or even moving to another state. Now, let's turn to other estate planning documents that address the handling of your affairs if you become physically or mentally unable to do so. The first one is a durable power of attorney, which allows another individual to act on your behalf for non-health related matters. This is vital to your finances if you become physically or mentally incapacitated. You appoint a trusted individual who will be able to access your accounts, make investment decisions, and take withdrawals as necessary to settle your expenses. A durable power of attorney typically takes effect as soon as it's created, so that the attorney in fact, the person who has that power now, the attorney in fact can assume responsibility whenever it becomes necessary. If you're concerned about someone using the power before they should, you can make it a springing durable power of attorney, which becomes effective only in the event of your disability. The document should contain a clear definition as to what a disability is. This usually means that a certification of your condition must be made by a specified physician or healthcare provider. It should be noted, however, that the validity of a springing power is unclear in some states and specifically denied in others. So, what are the consequences of not having a durable power of attorney? Well, faced with your disability, your family might have to seek a court order appointing a guardian or conservator for you so that your finances can continue to be properly managed. However, that could mean not only delays and legal expenses, but also public disclosure of your disability. In the meantime, your bills and taxes might remain unpaid. A living will, used in conjunction with a durable healthcare power of attorney, can provide further protection. A living will allows you to state your healthcare wishes for which services you do and do not want administered in a life support situation. It helps to eliminate the uncertainty your family might be faced with if they ever had to carry out those wishes. Similar to a durable power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney appoints a trusted individual to make medical decisions on your behalf. These decisions are specific to health-related issues and would give them the authority to decide upon anything beyond the scope of what was covered in your living will. Note that all of these documents are state-specific and should be reviewed by appropriate legal counsel to ensure their validity. Several years ago, my wife's cousin, who was in her late 30s, had a stroke and was in a coma. She did not have any of these documents in place, and her mother had to decide whether to keep her alive or to let her go. Her mom made the difficult decision of letting her go.
Okay.
This is not a burden you want to place on another's shoulders. And so the importance of having these documents in place cannot be overemphasized. And we'd strongly encourage everyone listening in today of any age to make sure they have these documents set up for yourself. So in general, most people should have a will, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and a living will. However, you may want to include a letter of instructions, which is an informal, non-legal document that generally accompanies your will. It's used to express your personal thoughts and directions regarding what is in the will and other topics or items. It differs from a will in that any directions you include in the letter are only suggestions and are not binding, and it remains private. What are some things you can include? You can include burial wishes, an explanation of your actions, advise your executor and or beneficiaries, and the nature and location of information your executor may need, such as a document locator, which we'll touch on in a moment. So, while the letter of instructions is a non-legal document, it may provide some color to your estate plan. As we see here, the last bullet point references a document locator, which should identify the location of your will and trust documents, deeds and titles, insurance policies, military discharge papers, and any other important papers the executor should have. It should also list the names and locations of your banks, account numbers, as well as contact information for your attorney, accountant, and life insurance agent, for example. Where should you store it? Make sure you put it somewhere safe where someone can actually access it, and let a beneficiary or an executor know where it is located. You should review the document locator annually and update it as circumstances change. Given the complexity and legalities of estate planning, we would strongly suggest you consider working with an estate attorney. Now, when looking for an attorney, you want to seek out a lawyer who specializes in estate planning and acts as a legal counselor and educator. While working with an attorney may be more expensive than going through a prepaid legal service, for example, it may also be more comprehensive. Finally, we see a few sites you can use to locate an estate attorney. So, what are your next steps from here? I spoke about taking action earlier today. And as a reminder, the elements of a personal action plan should include a specific series of steps and a time frame in which to achieve each of them. We see some examples here, such as reviewing your estate documents and beneficiaries and meeting with an estate attorney. If you have a checking or savings account that you own individually, you may want to add what's called a POD, which stands for payable on death. So for checking and savings accounts, you may want to add a POD, payable on death. Think of it as a beneficiary designation. For individually owned brokerage accounts, stocks, bonds, for example, not in retirement accounts, but for individually owned brokerage accounts, you may want to add a TOD, which stands for transfer on death. And remember, you have assistance available to you both online through the EY Navigate digital website and over the telephone via the EY Navigate Planner line. So as we near the end of this presentation, the PBUCC and EY would like to ensure we are meeting your needs by obtaining your feedback. To help ensure we're meeting your needs, we request you complete a short survey. If you text WKSP space PBUCC to 609-644-9622, you will receive a link for the workshop evaluation. If you prefer just to do it online, you can then go to pbUCC.eynavigate.com/workshop eval, as in evaluation. So again, it would be pbUCC.eynavigate.com/workshop eval to fill out the survey. For the workshop number, you can simply type in PBUCC estate. No actual number is needed in this instance. We hope you found today's presentation informative and helpful. Thank you all for your time, and I'm now happy to answer any questions you may have.
Dan, thank you so much. Before we answer any questions, I just wanted to mention that on a few slides back, you had mentioned a document organizer, or the importance of putting the location of your important documents and such. We actually have a document that was provided by EMY on our website. I'm going to put this in the chat. And this goes to a vital records organizer where you'll have the ability to put that information in there. And like Dan said, it's good to review that periodically so that if someone had to all of a sudden find those documents, it would be less of a puzzle to put together during a traumatic time. So, so there's that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you are a member of our non-Medicare medical plan, you have access to, as part of that plan, something called Health Advocate. Health Advocate has different tools and resources on there to improve your overall wellness. One of the things that they have on there is a legal center. In the legal center, you have access to generic documents like a will, like a living will, those type of things that you can use, templates. It's not going to, they're not providing legal advice. They're not going to customize a document, but you can use those templates to help you if you don't have anything in place. And there are other documents that are legal documents that you have access to as well within there. So with that, if you have any questions for Dan, you could go ahead and unmute yourself or put them in the chat.
Diane,
Yeah,
when are we meeting with the estate planner?
next week.
Oh, next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
No questions.
I see there were a couple of items in the chat here. I'm gonna see if I can open them up here, see if there was any specific question. Okay, yeah, it's just, all right, so good.
One of the questions that came up was, is there a way to pass on the ownership of a car without a will?
Generally, unless it is in a trust, for example, generally those type of assets would still go through the will, because there is no joint ownership, for example, potentially joint ownership of that asset. It's only so generally that's going to go through the probate process. If someone has a collectible car, whatever it might be, maybe that's a reason why someone would create a trust. And there's certainly pros and cons and many different types and flavors of trusts, but that might be a reason why someone would put or create a trust and put it in place.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
But on a vehicle like that, well, joint ownership doesn't say that it's would go to the joint owner then?
So each state is going to be a bit different. You might hear me say that a few times, and I think I mentioned it. Depends on potentially whether it's a community property state, if it's common law. Each state is going to maybe handle how that is taking place. So you would really want to have someone, if you do have significant assets that don't have beneficiary designations, for example, you want to speak with someone who's familiar with the estate tax rules to see how that would be handled.
In Connecticut, there's on a form, forms, you can designate someone to get your car bypassing the will.
Great example. Thank you there, right? So you see that Connecticut has one process which may not be available in other states. Yeah, thank you.
And if you know, is that something that you would find on like the DMV website for Connecticut, or?
I don't know. One of the documents I got from the motor vehicle department had that option on there.
Okay.
I don't know whether it was, I might have been the when you get the exhaust checked and stuff, the emissions.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's helpful. Thank you so much. Something to check out for your own state. We do that.
Yep. And that's recent.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, again, I want to thank everyone for your time today. And the recording will be available on our website. And if you have any questions, of course, you can call EMY to talk about estate planning or other financial planning topics. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day, and happy Thanksgiving.
I got one final question, if it's okay.
Of course, please.
We're in a situation where we've got property on the house that we live in, and then I've got some extra land that I own. What's the best thing to do with that? I'm concerned that if we would end up in a nursing home, the nursing home is gonna come after us for payment and everything. But what can we do to keep from having to pay so much to the nursing home?
And did I hear correctly, that is the property in the same state that you live or in a different state?
Same state.
So this is where you probably want to speak with an elder law attorney, because now you're starting to deal with legal aspects in terms of what can be clawed back and what can be used. And this is where potentially you would then create an irrevocable trust to move that asset out of your estate. And generally, once that asset is out of the estate and you live a certain amount of time, usually 3 years, then that's no longer brought in for estate tax purposes. But again, each state is going to be a little bit different. And so you certainly want to speak with an elder law or an estate attorney to find out what's the best move. But it could be that moving it into a trust might be the answer.
Okay, because I've been considering trying to get our house and everything into one of our sons' names instead of ours.
The issue may be, if you're moving it into a child's name or someone else's name, have you potentially created a gift event? And so that might be something that needs to be looked at in terms of how you're transferring over that asset, or whether you're making them a joint owner, for example. So so definitely something you want to make sure that you have buttoned up.
Okay,
All right. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a happy Thanksgiving. All right.
Same to you.
Take care now.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Travis.